Smartphones have gotten really expensive. I don't think anyone can deny that. Back when Apple introduced the iPhone X, everyone was screaming when they announced that it was going to be $1,000. But since then, the price of $1,000 has pretty much become the norm for a flagship smartphone. And unfortunately, if you live in the US, that price might be going up even further. Now basically the gist of the situation is this. Last year, the US and China engaged in a trade war. Now, this means that both of them tax imports coming in from either country. In the US, this started with aluminum and steel, but it expanded a lot into 3 separate lists. Eventually, the US started putting tariffs on individual electronics components like PCBs and touchscreens. But here's the thing. These lists didn't include fully assembled electronics like your smartphone or a laptop. Now, most of these tariffs only really affected the businesses that were bringing in individual components to the United States from China. Most big companies assemble smartphones, laptops, and other electronics in China and then import it into the United States, so it didn't affect them quite as much. But there is a 4th list of products being introduced which pretty much blankets the entire electronics industry, and it could go in motion as soon as July 2nd. If this list goes into effect, pretty much any smartphone, laptop, tablet, or other electronics product that is assembled in China and then shipped into the United States is going to be hit with a tariff up to 25%. And while that might seem like just more money for the US, it's usually the end consumer that ends up paying the foot of the bill. Here's a real world example. I was just in Taipei, Taiwan for Computex, which is this huge computer trade show, and the PC case manufacturer NZXT unveiled their new line of products. But I looked at the pricing, and the US pricing for these products is $10 to $30 more than the global pricing. That's because there's already this tariff on steel and aluminum imports, and what are PC chassis made of? Steel and aluminum. NZXT manufactures these cases in China, and if your phone or tablet or laptop is manufactured in China, you're probably going to see a very similar price increase. Now, the new tariff's probably going to hit actual Chinese companies like Xiaomi and OnePlus the hardest, but don't be surprised if you see Google and Apple increasing their prices as well. Both those companies use a company called Foxconn to actually manufacture their products in Shenzhen, and unless Foxconn moves all of its manufacturing out of China to somewhere like Taiwan or elsewhere, you're probably going to see that price increase in your product. This recent report from JP Morgan is suggesting that Apple would need to increase the price of the iPhone XS about 14%, from $999 to $1,142 in order to make up for this tariff difference. Now, Apple makes almost a 200% margin on their products, so it's very possible that they could keep their prices the same and just eat that cost. But for a company like Xiaomi, which has a 5% cap on all their hardware products, there could be a lot of trouble. Now, Xiaomi hasn't actually entered the US phone market yet, even though they were planning to by the end of 2019, but things like the Mi electric scooter and the Mi Box S are very popular products in the United States. Now, interestingly, this tariff could also give the upper hand to a few select companies. Samsung only has 2 factories still operating in China because it's preferred to move most of its manufacturing out of the country. They were already the #1 smartphone manufacturer in the world, and they were set to be de-seated by Huawei within the next 2 years. But Huawei is kind of fallout of this whole trade war situation anyway, so it looks like Samsung is going to have a couple of pretty good years. Now, there is a public forum set to take place from June 17th to June 25th, and then there's a 7-day rebuttal period where companies like Best Buy are expected to show up to try to get the government to not put these tariffs in place because they're gonna have to raise their prices. If you wanna follow along with the story, make sure you stay tuned to AndroidAuthority.com because I'm going to be following it very closely, and there's only a few days until this actually all goes into effect. So I will catch you in the next video.